So Jeremiah Trotter Jr. drafted with the 155th pick, fifth round draft pick. He is 6 foot even, which is 10th percentile, 228 pounds, which is 11th percentile, with 31.5-inch arms. That is 25th percentile. If you go look at his relative athletic score, he did not receive a score because he didn't complete enough testing. He didn't do the jumps or the 40. However, he did do the agilities, and they weren't that good. A 4.4 shuttle, a 7.13 three cone. And so if you want to talk about why Trotter fell, he is undersized and he is not an elite athlete at the position. In fact, he's a below average athlete. So we go to his stats. Trotter Jr. had 28 pressures on 102 pass rush reps this season. That's a 27.5% pressure rate. And so he's good as a block, or he's good as a pass rusher. There's a specific rep. I was going to save this. I'm just going to show it now. There's a specific pass rush rep against Notre Dame that I just love. And I tweeted it before the draft. I tweeted it on draft night. I tweeted it again. It's just incredible because he's going to line up as a blitzer, and the running back has him all the way, and he just makes the guy miss in a phone booth and gets the sack. And so he's tremendously talented as a blitzer. And of course we get the axe throw down there, but just watch this one more time. And you tell me there's not a use for that from a guy like Fangio, who loves to blitz his linebackers. So we know Fangio loves to send a linebacker. He loves to drop out an edge rusher. And so you think about that, he's going to be good in that role. However, he's a poor tackler. He had a 16.3% missed tackle rate this last season. And then per PFF, he allowed 24 receptions on 27 targets for 224 yards and a touchdown, with 2 interceptions and 2 pass breakups. And you ask, how could he only have 3 incompletions when targeted, but have 2 interceptions and 2 pass breakups? And the answer is, I don't know. Somebody at PFF must have miscounted. But per their stats, 24 of 27, but he had 2 interceptions and 2 pass breakups. So fun little Easter egg there in the PFF charting. Jonny, your article for Trotter is not out yet, but it is written. I've had a preview of it. What are some of your strengths when you look at Trotter Jr.?
Firstly, 2 weeks in a row we're throwing shade at PFF. We've got to be careful. We love their work just for certain things, not for other things. Right, so strengths for Trotter. Firstly, already got a comment coming in about this from Anthony. I've put that as my number one strength. Like, bloodline in football absolutely matters. If you are telling me that football like bloodline doesn't matter, just literally look at some of the best players we've seen. You've got the 2 Manning brothers as the most famous one, but obviously we've got Marvin Harrison in this draft class. Like, of course it matters. You're being brought up in a culture of football where you're probably watching film from a young age. And guess what? It's no surprise that his ability to key and diagnose and his awareness is just exceptionally good. His instincts are brilliant. When coming downhill, he can read the play out really quickly. He can close quickly. He is very small, and being very small is a problem, but there's also benefits. He can use that to his advantage. I'm going to show a clip of this shortly where he basically avoids blocks rather than takes them on, because that's the way he plays. He can run sideline to sideline. He's quick enough in pursuit. I don't really worry about his speed a great deal. I think in zone coverage, he's really good. I think this is where his awareness comes in, and why Fangio probably enjoyed the film a lot, because I think you can definitely teach him to sort of play in a Fangio style, where I think when he reads a quarterback's eyes, I think he's really strong. I think it will take time, as everyone does, to adjust to this defense, but I think he's strong in zone coverage. Interception numbers, you mentioned, are really good. His blitzing is extremely good. The Eagles have now got 2 linebackers in the Kobe Dean and Trotter, who maybe are too small to play together, but if the Kobe Dean misses time, which he always does, you could easily have Trotter replacing his pass rushing skill set. So I really like him. Physical, aggressive, just looks the part of a linebacker. Before we get into why he fell, and I think it's fair to point out the Eagles also let him fall a while because they had a massive need at linebacker and didn't touch him until day 3 and late in day 3 as well. You've got another clip I know lined up where he reads play action, which is an awesome play. So do you want to talk about this one? And then I'll talk you through one of the other ones that I sent to you before, Shane.
Yeah, so let's just roll this play. And I want you to watch Trotter, and I want you to watch the linebacker next to him and how quickly they just compare their reaction time to realizing this is play action and going from run defense to pass defense. And so I'll just roll the clip here. You see how much quicker Trotter is to react to that. And that is a really tough play to read out because you got play action. I mean, it's essentially the little RPO play action that the Eagles like to run, where you scrape somebody across the formation and you try to roll out and throw the ball to that guy. And Trotter picks this guy up immediately. He takes like one step and then he's out on the receivers. Like there's something wrong. A receiver is running the opposite direction that everything else is going. And he just picks up on that and he's off to the races. And when you look at the linebacker next to him and that reaction time, and yeah, they've got different responsibilities, but it takes that other linebacker a couple more steps to really plant and start to drop into his pass depth. And that's what you see on his film. I think that play is just a good representative sample of his football IQ. He's not the fastest guy, but he's almost always the first guy to react correctly to a play.
Shane, we've watched that play about 500 times the past 3 years, and no one ever reads it. Like no one covers that play. He diagnoses that so quickly. That's film study. That's preparation. Do you want to bring out the clip, the first one that I sent you before we started as well? So when we talk about being small, it means you have to play a certain way. So an old school 250-pound linebacker would go charging into a pulling guard, take him head on, and then blow up the run play. Trotter can't do that. So basically, he has to win by being small. So it is a problem, but you could also use. If you see this clip here, it shows a better angle, Shane, I think, after this from the backside, where he just doesn't want to take on. There's a left guard, I believe, who's trying to get to the second level and get towards him, and he just makes him miss. But that's hard. It looks easy, but if you watch his eyes, he's looking at the running back the whole time. He's diagnosing that. So he's almost got a natural feel for the guard coming because he doesn't look at the guard barely at all because he's constantly got his eyes on the running back. And that's quite an open block as well. The guard's got like quite a lot of space there. It's not the most difficult block in the world. And Trotter's not good enough to take him on. Like Trotter is not going to blow up the guard. He's too small. Like 300-pound guards, 310-pound NFL guards are going to basically win against him. And we'll get into that when we talk about his weaknesses. For him to win, he has to win like that. And if you read the play quickly, you can avoid the offensive lineman. I think he could legitimately start. Like he won't start this year, but I think he could. And I think he could be okay. Like I know he went late, and I know I shouldn't bet on him being starter. NFL teams ignored him because of his size, and he went to the fifth, and he should be a backup. But I don't think you can teach instincts, and there's just something about watching him play where I just think he gets it. And I might be wrong, and he might flame out because he might be too small. He might miss too many tackles, and I think the tackles is the one thing that I worry about. Have you got any other clips, Shane, of positives, or do you want me to talk about the sort of weaknesses?
No, let's get into the weaknesses.
So, sorry, my screen decided to hang there. I was looking at one of the clips. You've already mentioned most of them, to be fair. The most obvious one is he's too light. Basically, that's the big problem. And we mentioned about this with Smith lastly, but NFL teams will have set criteria, and a lot of teams just won't touch a linebacker at his size. Like, he'll just be off their board. And his biggest issue is taking on offensive linemen at the point of attack. Again, I go back to that 250-pound old school linebacker. Like, he does not get off blocks, Trotter. If you get your hands on him, he's in trouble. Because of that, I think he has to read everything so quickly. He can sometimes be too over aggressive, I think, because he's almost overcompensating for his lack of size. So he has to read things quicker than a normal, say, size linebacker does. And I think that means he can sometimes be a little bit over aggressive. He can overrun the play. There was one play that I didn't like, which when you watch it, I sent it to you as well, Shane, if you cue it up now, where basically he gets blocked by a wide receiver. And you might be thinking, oh, well, that's a disaster. Like, linebackers getting blocked by receivers. And he's not just like blocked a bit, like he's pretty much taken out the play. And then you realize that wide receivers these days, I mean, look at Jonny Wilson, are literally bigger than him. So it's no surprise that a linebacker by a receiver, if you had said that 10 years ago, you'd think that was mental. Like 250, 260-pound linebackers. Trotter is not 250 pounds. He's not 260 pounds. He's going to be smaller, for example. I mean, 6'2", 228 is not big. Like, we're talking pretty small. So he will face receivers that are bigger than 6'2", 228 that will be able to block him, let alone offensive guards, centers, the athletes we see on the offensive line position these days. So his game is going to come down to two things. Can he diagnose quickly enough, and can he avoid blocks? Because he's not going to get off them. I don't believe he's suddenly going to start like shedding blocks and taking on guards at the point of attack anytime soon. I think his game will come down to, can he avoid them? Can the Eagles keep him clean with their big guys up front, because they've got a very undersized linebacker core? So I think they obviously are relying on their defensive line to keep him clean. But I do really like him. Like, my gut, I said this in the article that hasn't been posted yet, but I said my gut feeling is that I don't like speculating that 5th round picks will start, but I think he will, either maybe not this year, but next year. I think he could have starting linebacker potential. And let's be honest, we know this organization doesn't value linebackers. And if Devin White goes next year and maybe one other, like, there's a chance he could be sort of chunked up the depth chart pretty quickly, because the odds of him competing with a big money free agent or 1st round pick next year are very unlikely. So I think the Eagles almost need him to work as well. I would just say, like, scheme wise, I worry a little bit that he's in a crowded room with smaller linebackers as well, and whether that will limit his behind someone like Ben Van Sumeren, who can take on guards a little bit better than him. I don't know, but I do like the player. I've sort of rambled on a little bit. So what do you? I don't think I've actually ever heard your opinion, Shane, properly. Do you like agree with me on Trotter to finish up this one, or do you think I'm maybe a little bit too, let's just say, in love with the film with his dad that I've watched in the past?
No, I'm with you on most of what you say about him. I had him number 73 overall on my big board, and so I think he was great value where he was drafted. I get every concern. He's small. He doesn't have, I would say he has average to below average, slightly below average athleticism. And when you combine that with being small, that's a problem. But he tries to make up for it with that IQ. I think particularly for the Eagles, who just have nothing at linebacker, you could see him come in and make an impact. And the concerns are there. He has a weak base against the run. And you talked about his inability to anchor against offensive linemen. And we showed the clip where he avoids the guard. And that works sometimes. But athletic linemen can catch that move and just use it to push him out of the gap even easier. And when you go from college to the NFL, everybody gets more athletic. And so I am very concerned about that. I'm concerned that Devin White is not a good run defender, and Nakobe Dean is small, and Jeremiah Trotter is small, and I'm worried the Eagles will just be totally exposed by the run game this year. And so you're going to have to rely on your interior defensive line to keep guys clean. And oh, by the way, Fletcher Cox just retired. And so there's concerns there when you think holistically for the Eagles. But, maybe you're helped by the fact that you've got a Sidney Brown who's good coming downhill. You've got a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You think back to last week's episode when we talked about maybe playing Cooper DeJean in the slot because he's such a good run defender, and there's just trade-offs there. If you're going to go so light at linebacker, you might have to put a guy that's not as fluid in the slot so he can help set that edge. You might have to have your safeties come flying downhill a little quicker, so you're going to have to trust your corners on an island a little more. So it's all give and take. And, Trotter is just part of what the Eagles have done at linebacker, and that is be small and take guys late and not really invest premium assets into the position. I think that his skill set is remarkably similar to Nakobe Dean's. Both really smart players, both good blitzers, both undersized but decent in coverage. And then would Nakobe Dean have worked? I don't know. Nakobe Dean hasn't stayed healthy, and so we haven't been able to see that. But I think he's good insurance for Nakobe Dean. I think out of the two of them combined, you can get replacement level linebacker play, which would be a huge improvement. So the last thing I would note on Trotter, and I mentioned it earlier, he had that high missed tackle rate, 16.3% last season. And a lot of it is because he leaves his feet to make tackles in the open field. He's not a sound tackler. He's a hard hitter, and you see some highlight reps where he knocks guys backwards, but down in, down out, he's not the most steady tackler that you'll see either.
Yeah, I think when you go through the weaknesses, it doesn't sound good. Like, if it doesn't work out, there's a reason why he fell. But I keep going back to, it's very easy to look at all the weaknesses. When you actually go and watch him play, like, the instincts are there. The ability to diagnose what's being run is there. Like, I think there's a lot more positives than negatives, and I'm genuinely thrilled the Eagles got him when they did. I had him like you. I think you may have even been slightly higher in. I don't rank players, but I had him like round 3-ish, round 3 to 4. But I would have taken him in the third round. Funny enough, if you just bump up or swap Trotter and Jalix Hunt. But it's all about upside, and you can totally understand why Trotter fell. And I do think a lot of teams will honestly have just taken him off their board. Yeah, I saw that comment coming as well. It is absolutely not about size. It is not just about that. Instincts are way more important of a linebacker position. And I also think speed is overrated, because like instincts equal speed as well, because if you read things quicker, you get there quicker anyway. Trotter's just not a great overall profile, but if you want to bet like I am on instincts and the ability to play the position, and I am absolutely including his dad in this as well, by the way. I know I shouldn't, but I just can't help when I'm taking into analysis that he has been brought up in a family that probably talks about football and the linebacker position all the time. And if you're telling me that stuff doesn't matter, I don't think it's true. I think it absolutely will make a difference, the upbringing that he's had. And I imagine he's been around the linebacker position for a long time and will be a coach's dream